Welcome to Star Wars Timeline. My name is Ben, and today I'm doing a series finale review of the Droids Show called The Great Heep. On Disney Plus, it is listed as the first episode of Season 2, but it was actually a 1 hour long television special which was meant to be a prequel to the Mango Baobab character arc which we see in the first season. Before I go into this review, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to all the fans on Facebook, on YouTube, who have asked me to watch this series and review it for you guys. I wasn't planning on watching it myself. It was quite a ride. But today I want to give you my final thoughts on this movie and on the show in general. Before we jump into it, a quick spoiler alert. If you guys don't want to find out the story or the characters in this particular episode, please skip forward to the time-stamped section of this video where I actually talk about my impression of it. I'll give you my final thoughts about the series in general, but right now, let's get into the actual story of this episode. I have my notes in front of me, and here we go. So in the beginning of the episode, we see that the droids are en route to this new planet, right? They're on the way, and R2-D2 and C-3PO are discussing that it's nice to be of great service to humans, and they're excited to meet their new master. Now, we immediately go in the next scene to the actual planet of Baitu, where we see Mango Baobab, obviously the hero from the season 1, but here this story serves as a prequel. It shouldn't be anything new to Star Wars fans. You know how the timelines sometimes work. We had Star Wars, the original movies, then we had the prequels. So here in this episode, Mango has not met his new friends just yet. And immediately what I enjoyed right from the beginning is I could tell that they put a lot of resources and attention into the animation and production quality of this episode. Everything animates, from tiniest things in the background to the later parts of the episode where a lot of action is happening, a lot of details are moving in the background, and even backgrounds themselves, the way they are drawn, the foreground images and in the background details on machinery or the scenic landscapes is very, very detailed. I really enjoyed it a lot. It kind of stood out, and you could tell that you're not watching just an episode of a show, but it's a fully produced television movie. So that was really cool. Once we descend and start seeing this Baitu planet and meet its natives and see the landscape, it is all really, really beautiful. And it also harkens back to the Saturday morning cartoons of the 80s that I personally grew up with. You know, we had a lot of fantasy shows like Gummy Bears and DuckTales, and later on we had Gargoyles, SWAT Cats, stuff like this. So not surprisingly, when you look at the show, which is produced in the 80s, right away it has that very epic fantasy vibe to it, almost like Arthurian medieval fantasy shows of the 80s that we grew up with, especially Gummy Bears. I just immediately made that comparison between the Baitu planet and the other shows that I used to watch. So there's very lush and verdant forests around, and you see farms and castles in the background. I'm like, okay, cool, why not? You know, in Star Wars we could have castles or maybe fortresses as well, because later on the episode also introduces some technology, so it lets us know that this planet is kind of, it goes both ways. It looks medieval on one side, but then it's technological as well. And here, as we see the camera pans and we see Mango Baobab on his mount, he's cruising around, and then we meet the natives as well, and they look really cool and interesting. And what I really enjoyed is that they actually speak their native language, which is translated in the subtitles, which I put actually when I watched this movie. And it was kind of cool. I wanted more of that the show would introduce more aliens, that they actually speak their own language, and the main characters have to translate. We have a little bit of that throughout season 1, but it's always nice to see. It kind of puts you in that Star Wars world. It makes you feel that humans are not the only ones around, right? The aliens don't only look different, but they also have different cultures and different language. And as Mango is passing by the fields, they're harvesting and planting this plant, which looks sort of like space corn or something like that, which once again, it's like sort of medieval look of the planet, but at the same time, it could be something else, not necessarily corn. And we meet also this Baitu native boy called Finge, and he's like going underground with his little pet, and then they jump out of the underground, and instantly I knew that that will be a plot device that is used later in this episode. But once again, it was just something really interesting and curious, and I always put myself in the mind frame of a child who's watching this show, especially for the first time. I would have probably been blown away if I was like 5 or 6 years old and I'm seeing this cute little creature and a boy. Because when you're a kid and you watch all these animated movies, whether it's Disney or just other shows, the heroes always have some kind of interesting pet, where it's like small little wings and they fly around. But this one actually crawls underground, and I found that was really interesting and fun. Um, and Manga Baobab is up to his old thing, right? Even though this is the first time we're supposed to technically meet him according to the storyline, we already know that he's an entrepreneur and he's always seeking for stuff. He's almost like this Indiana Jones character stuck in the Star Wars universe. Now he's looking for this fuel ore, and he shows it to the natives, and he tells them that, look, if we get to discover this mineral, it will greatly advance your planet. So he actually has his own motivations there, but it also shows that he's a good guy and he's trying to help the planet, which was pretty cool. So immediately now, the tone of this show, of this episode changes. We have this very ominous shadow taking over the entire village and all the crops, and I instantly was thinking of the War of the Worlds, or the Independence Day movie, right? The old school classic action film when you see like those flying saucers taking over the sky. Same kind of like foreboding feeling here. I'm like, uh-oh, something is gonna go off, something really terrible. So very interesting, tense moment. And then of course, right on cue, things start going terribly wrong. You see this huge tornado coming out of nowhere. It's uprooting trees, it's destroying all the crops of the villages, and you know you're meeting the next villain, right, of the show. And right away, surprisingly, I thought that Manga Baobab, once again, he will start, fighting the bad guys right away. But he's actually knocked out. I'm like, okay. So he's taking sort of like a backseat during the first part of this movie. He's not present. He's taken away. We're back to the droids, who are en route to the planet, and they're bickering a little bit, as they always do. And they talk about how it will be interesting to go to this new planet, meet their master. But they're attacked by the ship. And these droids come out, and they swarm around this ship, and they start breaking it apart, and they actually like put this sleeping gas into the cabin and knock out the entire piloting crew. That was really cool. Once again, I thought instantly of Star Wars prequels. Remember the Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin and Kenobi are flying in the first part of the movie during the Battle of Coruscant, and they're trying to rescue Chancellor Palpatine, and these buzz droids are attacking their fighters. This is what exactly is happening here. And once again, it's one story element or idea that George Lucas recycled from this earlier show and actually puts in the prequels. I was like, I remember where this is from. This is actually pretty cool. So the droids are stolen, right? And they're brought to this planet's droid harem. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That's kind of semi Jabba the Hutt's place where they bring R2D2 and C3PO, where there's like, hey, we have use for your kind. Remember, the droid says. And same here, right? There's a whole bunch of different droids of all colors and configurations and looks, and I love this stuff. This, from the visual standpoint, I gotta say, this show is knocking it out of the park. It feels like Star Wars. It's catering the kids with like simpler stuff that's like taps a lot into fantasy element, like medieval European fantasy stuff as well. So it balances the two really well. But the droids are always the stars of the show, whether it's R2D2 and C3PO or some other droids. So we are in this droid harem, and it kind of seems innocent for a little bit. There's like a bartender standing behind the bar, and he's telling him, oh, enjoy yourselves, everything will be fine. I'm like, okay, this is a change of pace. Maybe not everything is so terrible on this planet. What's happening, right? I was curious to find out what happens next. And then, of course, we meet this Great Heep. This huge, giant droid comes out of his tracks, and I'm thinking, oh, dude, this is like that massive destroyer Terminator in the Terminator films 1 and 2, when they showed the dystopian future war, right? And this huge, giant, mech-looking Terminator comes out, and he starts shooting planes off the battlefield, and he's shooting like a Kyle Reese and stuff. Like, oh man, he's pretty intimidating. He's huge. Facially, obviously, like he's a droid, but they give him like anthropomorphic features. So he also reminded me of the that Transformers show. I'm like, okay, this is pretty interesting as something I could dig. Aesthetically, very interesting to look at. So Great Heep, we find out that he's using all the droids for manual labor. He's clearly a tyrant, but also he eats them. He consumes droids to recharge himself. And I thought to myself, wow, what a villain. And actually showed it a little bit in the beginning, how he has this like little compartment in his mouth, and then he puts the droids in the slot, and it's like he charges over. It's like, this is pretty cool, pretty interesting way that he's consumes them. And we see Mango Babab, of course, he's in jail, and we're taken to this scrapyard refinery where this fuel ore is being refined for this Great Heep's benefit. And we also see the droids laboring hard, and like they're toiling, and he treats them really poorly. And we also see the great structure of this moisture eater. It's something that completely destroys the planet's environment, because I guess rain is something that droids don't want. They want completely the planet devoid and barren of any vegetation and plant life, so they could mine this ore better, I guess. That was kind of like interesting, and you could definitely tell this guy's like a great villain, and I couldn't stand him. And I was like, I wanted the droids and the Mango Baba come back and just kick his butt real quick. So in the droid harem, we see 3PO is chilling. He's taking that oil bath that we see the droids take in New Hope, which I felt, again, was pretty endearing and funny. And then this cool droid girlfriend, this pink egg-looking droid on wheels, just comes out, and he jumps in the pool with C-3PO. And of course, they start socializing, having fun and good times. I also found it really funny. There was two droids standing by the pool, and the moment that they see this girl droid, they kind of whistle and they fall over. I'm like, okay, they're showing the kids that she's there. Again, anthropomorphizing this droid, and they're saying that it's a girl, and it's something that C-3PO is making friends with. It was kind of cool. We're back to C-3PO and the Baitu boy Finch. They meet one another, and they actually make plans of how to rescue Mango Babab and help the planet and save it from this tyrant. R2-D2 makes his escape, and then, of course, he's the one who has to help his bigger C-3PO friend to escape as well, and the droids reunite with Mango Babab. What I found the most interesting part of this episode was when Mango Babab says, look, we gotta infiltrate this Imperial base, this refinery, and I gotta disguise myself. This is basically a droid place, so I gotta dress as the droid. He puts all these pieces on top. I felt it was such an interesting and cool thing that he did. So they go into this refinery, and they find out, they make further plans how to, rescue everyone. And of course, all hell breaks loose, and they start fighting everybody. And then, of course, this is where we see the Empire, and Admiral Screed is also obviously has parts of his plans here on this planet. He's basically talking to the Great Heep. He's like, aha, so are you doing everything according to plan? This is what the Emperor expects of you. Of course, once again, tying this show into the greater Star Wars themes, saying that behind this one technological tyrant, there is always the Empire. There's always the Emperor, and he oversees all the bad stuff happening around this galaxy. He's the main cause of all the trouble. And as all the action breaks loose, there's a lot of stuff happening. R2-D2 manages to steal this ship, and what he does very, very, very heroically, he flies that ship right into the moisture eater, destroying everything, including himself in the process. And very tragically, the R2-D2's pink droid girlfriend, she's consumed by this Great Heep. He actually takes her and he eats her, and I felt that was artistically very interestingly how they distinguish that this droid is no longer alive. They drain all the color from the droid. When she's disposed of, she's like this husk that's just like tossed away. And when you look at her, you really kind of feel for her, like, oh man, what's going to happen? We know that they're droids, that it's possible to repair them, but until the very end, you don't really know what's going to happen next. And as the moisture eater is destroyed, we see this Great Heep is completely enraged, and he tries to pursue our friends. And what I really loved about this episode is that rain, right, this natural feature which helps destroy this great villain. And this episode is basically an environmental message, right? It begins with something verdant forests, and they see like a native villagers being peaceful, and they're farming and they're growing crops, something that is good, right? And then comes this technological empire and this great, huge-sized droid, and he's destroying nature. So it's once again one of those themes that George Lucas always introduced, which is technologically inferior culture being attacked by this technologically advanced tyrant. Very cool. So the Great Heep is destroyed, And Mongo Babab helps the droids. They liberate them from that refinery, and they help actually regrow the plants, and the planet is restored. And we see C-3PO sitting down, and he's like grieving his friend, and he's holding this sonic capsule. And he said it was actually a birthday present from R2D2. I was like, oh, dude, this is like so fun. It's just like two friends, and C-3PO is kind of commemorating his friend. And of course, excuse me, right there, R2D2 comes back. He's alive, and you see like a parachute attached to his back. He actually managed to escape. And then the last cool thing that we see in this episode is that R2D2 gathers around all his friends, all the droids, and they connect to one another, and they actually revive the girl droid, his girlfriend. Once again, it's showing that even something like a machine, a droid, could feel compassion, and they work together, showing that great connection that we all share, right? They literally connect into one of each other's like slots, and they give their energy to her, and she's revived. All in all, I would say this was probably my favorite episode in the show. I really, really enjoyed it a lot because not only everything came together thematically, the story worked really great. It was very suspenseful, but from animation standpoint, I thought it was the best episode by far. Not only everything looked great, like in the foreground and the background in terms of art, everything moved with like incredible fluidity that supersedes everything we've seen in previous episodes. Like this is the best animated episode or TV movie to date. So what is my overall impression? As I said, it's the most refined one. It had the best animation, the story, everything came together. And I gotta give out the shout out to the artists of this show as well, and say that everything in the background, all the droid drawings, all the environment drawings, like the refinery, the Great Heep, all the Imperials that we see. Once again, we see Admiral Screed and the main characters like Mongo Babab, which looks so cool and distinct. They knocked it out of the park. Everything looks so beautiful and so cool in the show. And with the quality of this movie, it kind of makes you wonder, what would a second season of the show look like when, obviously the crew learns, they perfect their craft, they work together as a team, and now this production is getting better and better with each passing episode. It's kind of saddens me that we don't get a season 2, but because everything works so well together in the show overall, which was very surprising to me. I thought I'm not going to enjoy it nearly as much. I actually did, quite a bit. I feel that in the future, if they use the traditional animation techniques that we sometimes see on Disney for Kids, on YouTube, or Star Wars for Kids, those little animation character featurettes that they have, if they apply that kind of animation style to the droids and have a sequel, that would be really interesting to see. My only concern is that a current show would look quite different, because we now know the origin story that R2D2 meets C-3PO in young Anakin's home. So they encounter, the way they meet is kind of different. It was retconned, and in the prequel, George Lucas went with a completely different origin story for both of these droids. Maybe we could have something that's not canonical, like the Star Wars Visions. Because when you look at this original show, I think the most endearing part about it is that it's the innocent age of Star Wars, where there is no EU expanded universe, and there is no other content to connect with. They could do whatever they want creatively with the show. And that's how they decided to go about it. Okay, it takes place 17, 18 years before the rebellion. The droids is there. There is no Anakin. There is no Obi-Wan Kenobi. There is no Jedi Order. It's just those two having fun adventures on their own. But it's actually something that we see in the Clone Wars, right? We see episodes where it's only the droids a relation. I believe it was like 2 or 3 episode arc. I don't remember. I haven't seen it quite a bit. But that was the idea. Why can't they do it today? I would love to see a show come back with the same art style, same aesthetic, but with like modern techniques and animation. It would have probably looked really, really good. Anyway, guys, thanks for recommending this show to me. I really enjoyed it. This episode gets a straight 4 out of 4 from me. Who is this show for? Obviously, if you're an adult who is like, tries to expand their knowledge and read like all the lore books, expanded universe, and adult novels, I don't know. It's definitely not a must, right? It doesn't relate to much of anything in terms of like greater Star Wars material, like movies or books and stuff like that. It's very independent. It's something that you could enjoy if you grew up with 80s Saturday morning cartoons, or if you have kids. If you have a family like with young children who are enjoying Star Wars, I would feel that this is a perfect starting point for them to get introduced into Star Wars, because you meet two iconic characters going on onto the adventures. Anyway, I don't think that every single Star Wars fan should be without it, but for somebody who's curious, for somebody who enjoys animation, for somebody who has kids, this is a perfect starting point. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching and introducing the show to me. I really had great fun watching it. It kind of saddens me a little bit that it's over and we're not getting any more of it. But I know that there's Star Wars Ewoks, right? That's the next show I'm going to go over. And I hope you guys stick with me and watch me review that show as well. And I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care.